What would you do if the person you trusted most was living a life you were never meant to see? How many red flags would you ignore if love felt perfect from a distance? And what if the future you were planning was already someone else's present? Have you ever wondered how easy it is to fall in love with a version of someone that only exists on your phone? How far would your trust stretch before it finally snapped? And what would happen if one accidental discovery exposed a truth so disturbing it rewrote everything you believed about your relationship, your judgment, and yourself? Because this isn't just my story. This is a question for anyone who's ever trusted someone from afar without realizing the distance was hiding the truth. Our relationship felt like something out of a modern fairy tale, built through late-night FaceTime calls that stretched until sunrise, endless blue text bubbles filled with affection, reassurance, and future plans, and a deep belief that distance didn't weaken love but strengthened it, because that's what we told ourselves. And I believed it completely. So when calls were missed, weekends were suddenly busy, or time zone explanations stopped making sense, I brushed it off without hesitation, telling myself that love required patience and trust, that real commitment meant understanding sacrifice. And slowly, I began trusting his words more than my instincts, more than logic, more than the quiet discomfort I felt but couldn't explain. We talked about visits that were always coming soon, places we'd live one day, a life that always existed just a little further down the road. And those promises felt real enough to silence every doubt. Because from my perspective, he was consistent, affectionate, emotionally present, and deeply invested, or at least that's what I was allowed to see. What I didn't realize was that distance wasn't testing our connection, it was protecting his secrets, giving him complete control over what I knew and when I knew it, allowing him to curate a version of himself that only existed through a screen. Every message perfectly timed, every excuse reasonable, every explanation just believable enough to keep me emotionally tethered. And I lived in certainty, convinced that surviving the miles meant our bond was unbreakable, unaware that the man I loved didn't exist outside of my phone, that my trust was built on fragments, not facts, and that curiosity was quietly forming in the background. Small questions I avoided because asking them felt like betraying the love I believed in, and that curiosity, once ignored, would soon become impossible to escape. If this feels familiar, if you've ever trusted someone blindly because you wanted the story to be true, like this video and subscribe, because the next part is where everything shattered. The truth didn't come from a confession or an argument. It came from a mistake. A single social media tag that appeared on my screen late one night, attached to a photo I wasn't supposed to see. And in that moment, my body went cold before my mind could even process what my eyes were looking at. Because there he was, smiling confidently, dressed perfectly, standing at a wedding altar, not as a guest, not as a friend, but as the groom, next to a woman who looked at him with the same love and certainty I had felt for years. And everything inside me stopped. Time slowed, my hands shook, and suddenly every unanswered question had an answer I never wanted. The missed calls, the busy weekends, the emergency trips, the confusing time zones, all of it rearranged itself into a horrifyingly clear picture. The late-night meetings were dates, the trips were weekends at home, and the future he planned with me was nothing more than a distraction designed to keep me from looking too closely. I spent the next 48 hours unraveling my own life, scrolling endlessly, connecting dots, discovering a double life so carefully managed that it made me question my own judgment, my intelligence, my reality. Because the man I loved wasn't confused or overwhelmed, he was deliberate. using distance as a weapon, controlling information, shaping perception, and ensuring I never had access to the truth. Every "I miss you" had been scripted, every promise calculated, and the shock wasn't just emotional, it was psychological. Because I wasn't only losing a relationship, I was losing my sense of what was real. And the most painful part wasn't even him choosing someone else. It was realizing that the person I trusted most had never truly existed, that I had fallen in love with a carefully edited version of a stranger, and that realization shattered me in ways heartbreak alone never could. If you believe truth always finds its way to the surface, like and subscribe, because confronting him was only the beginning. When I finally confronted him, there was no dramatic apology or honesty, just denial, deflection, and one last attempt to use distance to make me doubt what I had clearly seen. And that's when I understood the deepest damage of betrayal isn't what someone does to you, it's what it makes you question about yourself. Because I had to dismantle 3 years of memories, slowly separating truth from fiction, learning where love ended and manipulation began. And healing didn't come from closure, it came from clarity, from understanding that my ability to love deeply was never a weakness, even if it had been exploited. Walking away meant grieving not just the relationship, but the version of reality I believed in, accepting that someone who truly loves you will never use space as a hiding place, never turn distance into deception, and never make you doubt your own perception. And as painful as it was, losing that illusion gave me something far more valuable: self-trust. Because once I reclaimed my reality, I realized that love should never require blindness, silence, or self-abandonment. The distance is gone now, and so is he, but the lesson remains. Trust patterns, not promises. Believe actions over words, and never let someone build a life of lies in the space where love should live. Because the truth doesn't destroy you, it frees you. And today, I'm no longer living inside someone else's deception. I'm building a life rooted in clarity, honesty, and strength, finally able to see clearly again. If you believe the truth is worth protecting and self-respect is non-negotiable, like this video and subscribe, because your future deserves honesty.